Oh, wow. Look at that. Now that's a pretty one too. There was a lot down there, but this time we got a different print because it was a lot on there. But look at this. Hey, y'all. Hey YouTube, happy Saturday. We are back with my book Gel Plate Printing for Mixed Media Art, and we are in chapter 12. And chapter 12 is watercolor and alcohol with stain sprays on the gel plate. Now this gets us a nice, really kind of cool slurry of colors that are very, very watercolory. You can see this sort of landscape feeling, but it's definitely one that you could continue to paint on top of, collage on top of. I mean, there's so much you can do with this background, and it's just a wonderful technique, and it changes up what the Gelli plate will produce for you in terms of prints. So I'm Robin McClendon. I'm a mixed media artist. We do gel printing, book arts, mark making, anything mixed media art we're doing here on my channel. Thank you for joining me today. And if you're new to the channel, stick around, and I think you're going to enjoy this technique. So we'll get started. All right, so here we are. I have already been doing this with my patrons. You guys know we hang out over there a few times a week, and we're always doing different things. But today, we're going to work on this. Now, what we have here is I have some acrylic paint. You saw I put a little bit of water in there. Let me just clean that spoon a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm making a very watery acrylic paint. It's very watery. And so you just want to put a little bit of water down first to break the binders up in the paint. And then you can add a little bit more water just to make it, because we really are working wet on this plate. So you can just get your colors all lined up and be ready. So I'll show you some we've already done. So this is what we're going for. We're kind of creating these sort of stone pattern backgrounds that are great for collaging on and continuing to work, or sort of this sort of landscape type of feeling to it that you could paint into. You could continue to paint this up into like a really cool, I could see this being a really cool landscape, or you can use it for, like we said, collage, and you could come back and use this as a base surface to then use your paints to using stencils and stamps and things, however you want to, but it's just a really good, unusual sort of background to create. And what I do is I often use them as basis for my collage. So this is an example where I did the background, as you can see here. It's very slurry. And then I used my eco stain papers and vintage documents and what have you, and I created a collage. So I love using these for my collage backgrounds because I feel like they have the same, they're very simpatico, right? They have the same feeling of the stained and, sort of grunge, and it makes just a really beautiful background for your work. So there's a lot of ways to think about this technique. So let's get started. I'm already going to have some stuff on the plate, which is cool. So let's go ahead and pour some of this gray down that we just made. This is a butter. I'm using the paper artsy fresco paints in the butter. So the fresco paints, chalk paints, your acrylic paints, they all work really nicely for this technique. We can take the brush, and so we can get some brush marks by moving it around. Now, because this is watery, remember, it's going to move. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to move on the plate and just kind of get this very sort of watercolory kind of thing going on. So, and then I like to do, I'm going to put some spray stains on here. So let's use a little bit of this tea. You can pour or spray. Okay. And it's very slurry, but that's what we want. We get a lot of movement that way. And then let me go ahead and take the licorice. I love Seth's licorice. And these are the 𝐈𝐍𝐃𝐒 by Seth After, the dye spray. So let's get some of that in there. And then let's use alcohol. Now this alcohol, I've just put some in a spray bottle. And what that does, it's going to kind of start creating a different, not only a different drying pattern, but it creates that sort of stoning that's really cool. And then I think I'm going to just finish with a little bit of gold spray right on top. So we get a good mixture. And then what I'm using is I'm using a cotton printing paper. So this is a nice weight. It's 100% cotton, but you can use drawing paper. You want to use a pretty decent weight. So 140 pound or 220, 230, 300 even GSM. Smooth paper. You want it to be smooth. So even if it's a watercolor paper, you want it smooth. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put it down. And of course you can do this with copier paper. You just might not want as much water because it's going to absorb the water really quickly. Or use a heavier weight cardstock. That would work too. Okay, so let's go ahead. What I like to do is I'm going to put this down. And what I sort of do is I'm just smoothing this gently because I really want it to absorb. So we really want this paper to absorb. That's what we're going for. Absorb this liquid. That's why a nice watercolor paper, this design, but you want to smooth. I want to keep on reiterating that because the really textured watercolor paper, it doesn't absorb as fast, and so you'll pull it up and you'll have a lot of patches, and it's not quite a smooth a print, but you can experiment with it. Okay, so. Oh, wow. Look at that. Now that's a pretty one too. There was a lot down there, but this time we got a different print because it was a lot on there. But look at this. The colors, when it dries, oh, it's going to be the best. And so can you see not beginning to work on that? Other painting, other stencils. I definitely use it as a collage thing because when you get really close to it, when it dries, you can appreciate it more, but you'll see all those colors in it. So, and you never know, like it's a complete surprise. Honestly, you never know what you're going to get. So I still have quite a bit down there. So let's get a little bit more butter here. And, just get this in here, and I'm going to go ahead and spray to get a darker top here, sort of a two-tone, and then we can come back with, see how it starts creating that stoning. Okay, so let's do that. Do have quite a bit on there. So it's a completely different technique. It's a completely different way of working with your plate and your materials, but it's so rewarding. It's really rewarding. And you can overprint. So I'm going to show you. I have one that I did earlier that I want to overprint on. I feel like I want a little bit more goodness on it. So if you have places that you want to add to, when they dry, you definitely can. Oh, look at that. See, each one is so different. Oh, you all know me. Look how good that looks. So you just never know what you're going to get. don't be afraid to load the plate up and just go for it. Okay, so here I didn't have quite as much green down there as I'd like to have seen. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the plate just as we have it, but I'm going to add this green in. I'm going to add that in. It'll be some of that licorice still there. And I'm okay with the bottom, so I don't feel like I need to put a lot down there, but let's get some gold here. Maybe I'll do some gold along the bottom. And then I'm going to use the alcohol ink to really just get things to move around on the plate. And now let's just put this back on there and see what we pull. So you definitely can go back in. Well, this is looking good. So it's kind of like an overprinting technique. Just let it absorb. It's so wet, so you don't have to really worry about your paper sticking. But let's see what we have here. Okay, yes, look at that. So that really just filled out the print more to my liking. But you know, I have some where I do, like I showed you earlier. It just depends on the pattern. Like I like them both ways. Like I like this stoning pattern. The other one, before I did this, I wasn't that crazy about it. But I like this one. So you kind of just have to look at it and see what you like, and then, you know, just make the adjustments accordingly. So here we just have, so that gold really laid nicely down on top of that original gray that was down there. So when this dries, you really start seeing the rich textures and what have you. So love it. I think the other thing is that I'll do is that there's still some stuff down here. I have one more piece, so let's what I'm going to do is I won't put as much. I'm going to use the stains. I'm not going to put as much of the acrylic down. Let's just work with the dyes, so you can sort of see what we'll get with that. There's still paint down there, of course, but I'm going more with the dyes. And then the alcohol. Okay. Let's put this piece down. Once again, just gently tap it in the beginning to get it, you know, to absorb, because you don't want to just start pressing and, you know, you smush it too much. You want to kind of get the pattern established. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, so this is with the dyes. And so right here, you can see it was a little thin on the bottom. So I think what I would do is I'll move this out the way. And what we'll do is I'll use my brush to move this around a little bit. So we'll just kind of make it a little more painterly. And then we'll come back with the alcohol. So we're getting that stoning. Down the bottom, I like this this is called Copper Buff. So let's keep that. And we're just going to kind of go a little bit more painterly with it, integrate it a little bit. And then I'll go and use my pearl just to kind of get a little bit more. Oh, that looks good. Let's spray a little bit of alcohol down here just to get a little bit of stoning. And there we have it. So even if you don't pull a full print, don't stop. Let's get our tools out, our brushes and other things, and look how painterly that is. It's just gorgeous. And when it dries, it just becomes an amazing background to just work on top of. So there you have it. Chapter 12, working with watercolor. So watery paints or watercolor paints specifically, alcohol and spray dyes. I use Seth's spray dyes. If you have never done his spray dyes, spring for a set of them. They're like $5 a bottle. They're not a lot, but they last a good while. And I can't tell you how many techniques I use them for, because what I like about them, they are a dye. So they're going to penetrate the paper. They're not going to move around. You can come back and do other printing on this. They won't move, and they penetrate your papers. So you get good solid color. So if you want to work with things like more watery paints and stuff that could honestly disappear if it weren't for the fact that you have a stronger color coming behind it that's really penetrating the paper. So you guys know I use these for a lot of things. So I guess that's everything. Yeah, well, that's there we have it. So thank you for joining me and hanging out. If you're new to my channel, please hit the bell and hit all so you'll get my notifications, and hit thumb up the video so that YouTube will share it out with the community at large. And you guys know I love you, all my regulars. I know we were chatting it up in the premiere, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Love you guys. Bye-bye.